Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of pdxMindShares, podcast brought to you by pdxMindShares, sponsored by Anvil Media, digital marketing agency based in Portland, Oregon. We're here giving you tips to better your career. I'm here today talking with Kent Lewis. He recently wrote a guest blog for us on team management during this remote work era during the pandemic. We had a few questions for him to expand a little bit on his blog topic and give us a little bit of tips for the managers out there struggling to manage in a remote working era. So Kent, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Nice and clear, even with the mask. That's great. And for anyone worried out there, we are 6 feet apart wearing masks, or at least some of us are, staying safe. And, just checking in, not just with our audience, but with each other. Kent's been really great about that. In fact, in his article, he advises bi-weekly check-ins with the team to help stay connected and productive. So can you tell me a little bit about what those are like? If we were to have a check-in right now, what would that sound like?
Great question. I think it's really a combination of on a weekly basis. It's really how are you doing? How is your week going? But from a operational standpoint, talking with the team, I'm going to do this. When you're focused on this week, what progress have you made towards your goals for that week, that month, or even that year? And then really, what do you need from me? How can I help? Because that's my role, is to support your success. Those are the main check-in points. One layer deeper is on my monthly check-ins. It's more about what's happened in the last month, wins, sucks. It's how are things going with you, and how are things going with the company? Any questions, any feedback? And then lastly, it's kind of might go into a specific client or discipline level, depending on what your background, your role is at Anvil. Just to make sure we get from big picture, how are you as a person, how's the company, down to the specifics, so we can take care of the granular aspects as well.
Sounds great. Sounds like you put a lot of emphasis on the value of your employees. And I know one way to show value and to show them that you care and you appreciate their work is employee recognition, which is another thing you talk about a lot in your article. You talk about giving the team employee kudos. Tell us a little bit about your weekly staff meeting and the staff meeting kudos and shout outs. Has this ritual boosted performance for you, boosted morale?
Great question. So in terms of the gratitude side, we've had the weekly kudos for probably now 9 to 10 years out of the 20 years Anvil's been around. And it came out of the work I do with this group called Entrepreneur Organization, EO, volunteer group of business owners, and we're always trying to learn and grow and improve together. And there are things like mail jars and gift certificates that are or point systems that people can give each other. But when I first introduced it, the team that was here at the time thought it was corny as hell. And then the second round of people, it wasn't authentic to them. They wouldn't accept kudos. They wouldn't give kudos. The second generation of folks after them just game the system. They give each other kudos and bootstrap it up. And so it had a negating effect. But the current generation, that includes you, gives credit and shout outs where it's due for above and beyond. That's the whole point. If you're doing your job, you don't necessarily need additional kudos. But I'll give you an example. One of our employees was putting a lot of effort and was getting a little stressed about the email marketing and plan we're putting together for our larger clients. And it's not a core service set, but it's a very complementary capability of what we do at Anvil. And so it's a big deal on a lot of levels. And he knocked it out of the park. So while he was absolutely slated, and I sent him a Slack as well, just you cover your bases. But Meg gets probably more kudos from me than almost anybody at Anvil, and she knows what it's like. But I don't often write cards. But I knew it was such a big deal for him and for this account. And I hadn't shown him probably the same level of extra kudos, so I decided I'll just write him a card right now. So really, most of the appreciation is around acknowledging each other. It's not always top down. In fact, I feel it's more sincere when it's from peers. And then when noted, there might be a gift card, and then there's another sort of bonus system we have in place. But the gratitude comes primarily from spontaneous gifts and so forth.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, as a team member who gets a lot more of these kudos than anyone else, I'll admit it is corny, but in all the best ways. It's much appreciated. We all really enjoy it. And I think even as adults, there's still a part of us inside of us that's this little kid that really loves the pat on the back. And it makes us feel good, even in spite of all the other wonderful things that inspire team culture and connection and togetherness. In your article, you talk about field trips and fun company outings that we all had before the social distancing executive order. Since you've transitioned to virtual and remote work, I understand your team's been doing virtual happy hours at 4 p.m. on Fridays. Can you tell me more about what those are like and how you and the team will manage to stay connected during this?
Yeah, so one thing I noticed is that I've been generally anti-remote work until COVID forced the issue, and then it's proven that this team is very capable and very organized and very disciplined to be able to do work remotely. We have not seen some of the suffering that some of my other fellow agency and company owners that I talk to have experienced, which is great. But what I will say is when you look at we had to increase the amount of structured contact because we were not a remote culture. We're not a virtual agency. So we had our Monday staff meetings are virtual, our Wednesday big picture meetings are virtual. So I felt it was important to add something on a Friday, and Friday at 4 was a natural thing. In fact, before COVID, our team hadn't been diligent about enjoying Friday at 4s, and it's been a part of my fabric since college, but my first agency jobs, Friday at 4 was a thing. Everybody would crack a beer and chat or have a lot of liquor or whatever it was. And so what I like about what we did is, even if it's a half hour, sometimes it's an hour, it's been a little longer, but it's between 30 and 60 minutes, is everybody's more engaged virtually, or a combination of, now that we're halfway in the office, remotely than they were as a team. Because when you have a fully loaded office, some people on deadline, some just want to go home. Actually, probably almost everybody would love to go home, and others just want to party. And so you had those three different groups that often were conflicting and changed weeks to week. And so oftentimes we'd have nobody willing to want to crack a beverage and hang out. So with the structured point, the team is already where they want to be. They're, for the most part, they're already home, or if they're here, they're happy to be here to be not at home. And we're playing Scribble.io, we're playing Cards Against Humanity. We've done anything from just shooting the proverbial stuff to playing really fun games. And I feel like not only do I feel more connected with each team member individually by having this quality time that's not work time, I get to learn a lot about people, not just the backgrounds in their house or wherever they're sitting, to how they behave when they're not on call, on work mindset, and really how creative they are. That's been the biggest value, is seeing how absolutely wonderfully creative everybody is, whether it's how they draw or not draw well, but are draw smart, or how funny they are. All these things I think are so valuable to me as somebody who's seen far too many people come through our doors over the years. It's great to get to know this team arguably better than I knew my team before COVID.
I can attest to definitely being one of those that didn't draw well. We have a team member here who's a cartoon artist that put me to shame. So you started to touch on this a little bit, and I'm really curious, so I want to ask a little bit further. What have you noticed have been the pros and cons of managing a remote team, productivity-wise, not just connection and the fun hours?
So I think there's so kind of the managing productivity, staying productive. Sorry, I told you.
In terms of behavior, productivity, and their moods, we know we have a mix of introverts and extroverts here. What have you noticed about each of them and the pros and cons overall?
So what I would say is I've noticed, so there are a couple folks, I'd say there's 20% of our team in general that would love to work remotely full time. And then there's 20% that if they didn't get back to the office, they were going to need to seek mental health therapy or become substance abusers if it's not too late for that. But 60% of majority would prefer to be in the office but want to do it safe. Now, with that aside, regardless of where you're working, I noticed that the folks that prefer to work remotely are generally a little more organized. It's not whether they're introverted or extroverted. I think it's just a work style thing. That I think there are people that would maybe love to think they could work at home but couldn't. But here it's those that could or can do, and they do just fine. Then there's the folks that want to work at the office, and it could be personal issues. If I need my own space, I need to be able to be on a phone, or just practical. But it's also like a collaboration issue. They want to be able to work and see people and have those impromptu conversations that only happen in a physical environment. And they're better for it. I'm happier at the office. I feel more productive, more connected. But what I do see is people have had to restructure the smart ones. I won't say that I was thinking of me when I said this, but the smart ones have adjusted and listened to their bodies. So that's me in that I've learned that my between 5 or 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. is all my critical and creative thinking, mapping out things, solving problems, connecting dots. And then pretty much after 3 p.m. is when I do all my best writing. If I'm writing articles or creating presentations, I 3 to 6. And notice that is not standard work hours. So what I've done is I don't fight staying in bed and not just getting it out of my brain. I just let it flow. And maybe I stay up, no big deal, even if it's 4 or 5 a.m. And then I also will work later. My family is already used to me working whatever hours. But I feel less guilt now when I've told my family this is when I work best. And then that way I can take, say, a longer lunch, especially when I'm at home with the family, and not have any guilt about that either. And not that my family would like to see any more of me than they already do. They don't mind. Please go to work. So as far as the team, I do notice certain people work better, that are more organized with time blocking. Some are use the time at home more creatively. Everybody works a little bit different, but I like to see people are learning generally more than they're struggling. I think they're becoming better people because of this. I know Anvil is better for it. I hope that answered your question.
Took the roundabout way, but yes, you did answer my question wonderfully. Last one, and this one's kind of a difficult one for you to talk about, but you have thankfully decided that you feel comfortable being honest, and we appreciate your honesty. I know a lot of people would struggle with this, but I think they're all getting together in executive meetings and asking themselves the same questions. You mentioned in your article that you really value compensation and showing your team how much you care through compensation. You specifically say money talks. And when this pandemic started, you were very honest with the team that you and the rest of the executive team took pay cuts to supplement pay increases for high-performing employees during this difficult time. And honestly, that doesn't happen a lot with employers. We were all pleasantly surprised and really appreciated it. But what inspired you and the team to make that decision?
Well, I could give you this really altruistic answer, but it's really a combination of I have been a part of companies that have let go of some really good talent. I've been, including me, I've been laid off and fired, and that sucks. But I made a commitment after being laid off and being a top performer, being fired and being a top performer, and even a co-founder of that very agency, is that people don't usually get rid of the right people for the right reasons. And so I vowed to myself as I was growing Anvil never to ever let good talent go at whatever cost. So I took that farther in COVID. I wasn't planning to give raises after taking a pay cut. I was planning to take a pay cut to make sure we were break even or cash flow even. And that's what got us there. But then folks like you came in and showed that you're worth more than I was able to pay. But then if we rearranged some money, we could get you to where I felt the team needed to be in certain cases. And I just feel like it's the pragmatic side. When I said that sounds idealistic or altruistic to always take care of people. It's true. But the pragmatic reason is great talent is really hard to find, especially in the digital marketing industry. And I've learned the hard way. I have my principles. I've never counteroffered when somebody said I'm leaving. If somebody feels like they can get a better job or higher pay somewhere else, they should do that. But I certainly would appreciate if they talk to me about it first, and not in a threatening blackmail sort of way, because I will call that bluff. But that thankfully has not happened. People know better. They come in and they try to make it work. If it doesn't work, they move on, and I think that's the right way to do it. But again, one point to know about this is an agency owner in town. I have another group that I'm part of, this agency roundtable. One of the others said, "Have you been giving any raises?" And there were a dozen of us on the thread, and I was the only one in that thread that had given raises since COVID hit. Everybody else has been in a hiring freeze and will be either minimally September through December, depending on what fiscal year they're on. And to me, it's like you should be far more flexible and dynamic. And if you made big bucks in the past, you should be willing to sacrifice for the future. And that's what I've done a couple times for Anvil, and I would do it again. So I have stuck with my guns. I'm not going to let great talent go. And if I have to eat top ramen for a week, I'll do that, or a month. But there's always a better solution, like getting more business, getting the right people in, tuning our services. We're actually weathering COVID quite well, mainly because we have a really great team that's pretty sticky for our clients. So it makes this a very easy, natural decision for me. And thankfully, I don't have any major drug or prostitution or gambling habits that would eat away at my nest egg. So it allows me to take less pay and still, be able to pay the bills.
That's great. Thank you. I guess no more Grey Goose, no more top shelf stuff. You're making some strong sacrifices for us. Yeah. We appreciate it. So, all right, team, that is it for us. If you want to catch more from Kent Lewis, he frequently guest blogs for us. And catch more of him on the Anvil website, www.anvilmediainc.com. For more career tips, keep following our podcast and keep following our blog, www.pdxMindShare.com/our-blog.